The identity crisis is you having this massive load of anxiety upon you, asking where you're constantly every single second of your day for it's only a short amount of time though. And short, I mean either days or maybe even weeks. And of course, I hope that for anyone who's considering Islam, who has just accepted Islam, I'm just hoping it's going to be for a few days. But it's something that I think people who are considering reversion to Islam need to take in consideration. Because I think the issue with identity crisis as well is that you accept Islam and you think that when you accept Islam, you're going to feel this massive peace out of nowhere. I'll be honest, that's absolutely not true. Or at least for me, it wasn't. I didn't feel peace at all. If I'll be honest, I felt extremely anxious. And if I were to base whether Islam was a correct decision or not, based on how I felt, then Islam wouldn't be the truth. But of course, we don't do that. Identity crisis, just like you mentioned, is when you realize that, as I mentioned, this great amount of anxiety that you suddenly feel, but you feel anxiety because you're changing. Believe it or not, I literally made a video today on my YouTube channel about anxiety. So it's incredible that you made that question about the identity crisis. And you're the first person to ask about these important things. And I think it's also because you're a revert as well. So that's why. But anxiety at the end of the day is, for how terrible it makes you feel, it's the greatest indicator of progress, if you think about it. Because when you feel anxious, it's because you know that there's a potential positive outcome to whatever decision you've made, but also a negative. You know that when you're being anxious and you decide to accept Islam, you know that the positive outcome is that you're correct and that you're going to have eternal pleasure in paradise. But you know that if you're not correct, it's either eternal damnation if another religion is correct, or the negative outcome could be you literally becoming a terrorist, which is not what you'd want to do, or you getting rejected by your parents, getting kicked out of your home, and Islam then being disproven in like a week after you accepting Islam. That's the negative outcome. And both outcomes, both the positive and the bad outcome of this type of decision, are so great that also your anxiety is really great. So I also believe that not just with Islam, whatever decision you've made, that because when you're trying to make it, you don't feel anxious. You only feel anxious when you've actually made it. I believe that when you feel anxious, you should remind yourself, perfect. I'm anxious. This means I'm moving towards change. I'm anxious. This means something about me is changing. And when something is changing, it means you're growing, right? We all know that to grow, you need to step out of your comfort zone. And I truly believe, or at least this accepting Islam was the biggest, or at least that was the place where I stepped the most out of my comfort zone. And I'm sure it was the same for you as well. Probably that accepting Islam was probably one of the hardest things ever. The amount of uncomfort you felt when making that decision is something else. So I truly believe that you should realize that you're going to feel anxious. You're going to have doubts all the time. But those doubts and that anxiety is your exact indicator that you're progressing. So don't let that anxiety of accepting Islam, those doubts that you start to have, that you yourself can logically disprove to yourself in a second, okay? Don't let that stop you, or don't let that block you from being a Muslim. And don't let that get to you to a point where you say, I can't handle this anymore. I'm going to leave Islam altogether. Because then you go back to your old self. And your old self is a version of yourself that you're not pleased with. That's why you decided to make change in the first place.
That is so powerful. People take for granted how much power they actually have to influence their thoughts and how they view everything, right? We can choose through interpretation to view anything as a negative or view it all as a positive. And this is something that I had when I was obsessed with self-improvement before Islam. And now when I look at this in the Islamic lens, Allah is the greatest of all planners. Everything happens exactly as it's supposed to, right? So it's like, for example, I was doing a podcast and unfortunately, like 45 minutes into the podcast, the whole thing just like shut down. We lost the recording. We lost all. It was such a good podcast. And immediately I filmed a TikTok about this, and I said, I have two options right now. Option one is I can choose to let this cause me distress and be annoyed today and let it ruin my
Yeah.
day. And oh, I got this podcast. Or I can go, alhamdulillah, the
Yeah.
next one's going to be better. It happened for a reason. The fact that that got taken away means that there's something greater coming. And we look at this with anxiety. I'm so glad you mentioned this. It's so applicable. So many people live with anxiety, but they don't address the anxiety, realizing that it's there for a reason to push you somewhere, right? You
Exactly.
get nervous before going on a stage
Yeah.
because your body's telling you you need to perform, right? So I'd say to anyone who's anxious right now, evaluate what is possibly going on in your life right now that's leading you to have the anxiety, and then bite the bullet, make sincere dua, and take action. And that's how you'll
Exactly.
eliminate it. And then you grow, and then you'll no longer have anxiety with that.